Yeah, just let's try one shot in the ass. I mean the Warden BT. Right?
One. I was
Just one.
straight in the ass.
Yep, right there.
I was.
Yeah!
Shit, I thought you were aiming low.
How do
You
you
got the
shoot
mic,
over
Presley.
the battle
You guys are
tank?
shooting over the BT.
Yeah, how do you shoot over the BT?
Okay.
That was a skill, man. That was some skill.
That was an accurate
Ooh.
dodge.
Oh, that was underneath now. What the hell?
Hello guys, this is Low Tech Gaming here. So this video will roughly cover the new assault tanks that are coming in the next update, so as well as a little information on actually one of the vehicles that I didn't actually get to test a lot the other day, unfortunately. So that I was skeptical about, but it actually seems to be quite a useful vehicle. But we'll go into that more later on. Starting off, so I wanted to thank the devs for allowing me to attend the event again. So I think the second day of testing, while a little bit shorter, was actually very profound because I actually had a chance to go ahead and, like I said, use the assault tanks and kind of test them out. So unfortunately, I didn't have the time to test out one of these vehicles to its two of these vehicles to its full extent. So take that with a grain of salt as well. On top of that, most of the things I'm going to talk about right now are still in development or so. Most of these things probably can and will change between now and the update or so, but this is just like from what I can tell from the special dev branch I was allowed to participate in. So moving forward, with that out of the way, let's get into it. So starting off, I want to talk about the HC-7 Ballista. So the Ballista is the giant derp cannon that the Colonials have. It has a 250mm assault cannon, and I guess I'm assuming that its inspiration probably comes from maybe the Sturg Tiger or the Boom Bar, or so those short-barreled like German SPGs or so. But okay, so this is okay. So taking all those asterisks in mind, as this is all from what I've been able to test. This is still in work in progress. I was a little taken back with the Ballista, unfortunately so, because essentially from the tests I was able to conduct, because I didn't have a chance to go ahead and test it out against normal Foxholes, normal light pillboxes. I didn't have a chance to go ahead and test the cannon against that, so I don't know how effective they are against, I guess, most low-level buildings or so. And I think one of the my mentality on that was that most light tanks can probably take care of them anyway, so you shouldn't need a massive cannon to take those out or so, essentially. So I figured that they would be mostly effective against concrete structures, and I think in the limited testing I was able to do on that front. It wasn't the most effective, I guess, so I mean they weren't like one or two shotting concrete structures. So from what I could tell on a concrete trench network, I could only do about like maybe 7% damage, I guess, or so to it. And unfortunately we didn't have time to go ahead and test it out against like concrete pillboxes or so, more in-depth defenses, so due to the limited nature of the test build. But it seemed slightly underwhelming or so in terms of its sheer firepower, so it doesn't seem to have too much splash damage either. So it's definitely not a anti-personnel weapon. From what I can tell, so the rounds themselves, each one of them takes up its own slot, and I think you can only have a total of 5 or 6 shots in total in the tank itself. The shells are a large item, meaning that essentially you cannot put them in your inventory. If you are picking up a shell, you are holding it like a wounded person, essentially, or so. So you can't go ahead and stack multiple what is it? I guess like siege tank or I guess assault tank shells on your person. So you have to go ahead and only hold one, and they have to put those in like a chest or so, put them in a truck or so. But there's no way to go ahead and stack them in any capacity. The tank itself when going up against vehicles, at least like from what I could tell with light tanks and battle tanks. Okay, so battle tanks is just going to destroy it outright. Going up against the Warden assault tanks, which I'm going to go into later, it definitely doesn't have a chance at all. Light tanks wise, it was really iffy, I guess. It felt like it wasn't worth the cost of what the show's probably going to be worth, and the manufacturing potential to go ahead and send that to deal with light tanks. Especially since the cannon itself has a 20mm range. And on top of that, so it's not a direct fire weapon, so it still operates like an artillery cannon. So you have to go ahead and point it in its direction, and then you have to use your mouse wheel to actually adjust to what actual distance you want to cover. So, and then I also tested its durability. 2 shots with a light tank's cannon to the front will disable it. So, and those are 40mm shells, so any AT weapons or so, any 68mm cannons or anything higher are just going to rip it to shreds, essentially. So it's really a glass cannon, but it doesn't seem to have the firepower to warrant its use or so. And I think I talked to multiple other community contributors as well, so they kind of came to the same conclusion that I feel like it does need some form of buff in terms of its damage, I guess, or so. Because, like, I can understand that maybe it's a glass cannon. I can understand that you know, like, it's not supposed to go up against vehicles. But I feel like if that's the case, then it should essentially be like a giant, like, awe-inspiring A2 round that just tears apart concrete buildings. So it should be basically a Strum Tiger, essentially. So because that's kind of, well, I see most of its inspiration coming from. So I don't exactly. It's a weird thing. So like moving on to the Silverhand Mark IV, which is the Assault Warden tank, essentially. So it's like night and day. The Silverhand Mark IV is, I mean, it's reminiscent of the Lee, the M3 Lee American tank, but it's actually really good, in my opinion. So it is definitely a useful tank or so to use in frontline combat. It's pretty maneuverable, so it has a good amount of speed to it. And the amount of firepower I can put on target is quite incredible. So it has a hull mounted 68mm cannon, and it has a turreted 40mm gun, and it has 4 slots. So that means that you can actually carry not only a lot of AT ammunition for the 68mm cannon, but you can also, I don't know, put standard AP and shrapnel or HE shells, depending on what your circumstance is, or so, in the other 3 slots for the 40mm cannon. So it is actually very versatile. So you could go ahead and have a full AP loadout and devastate armored forces, or you could have something that's more balanced towards dealing with infantry. So there's so many possibilities with it. So it was definitely... It is, in my opinion, also one of the, probably, short of a battle tank, it's like one of the best armored vehicles that I see coming out with this patch. I did some various tests with it. It definitely just takes out a light tank with ease or so. Having 2 cannons, it's not even a challenge. But on top of that, so not only can it do that, but it can take on 2 light tanks, potentially, depending on the skill of the gunners as well as the skill of the drivers themselves or so, due to the fact that it does have slightly it has more health. I think it might have a higher I guess ricochet potential with its armor, and on top of that, with the dual firepower it has or so, it can definitely tear apart light tanks with ease or so. So it is definitely going to be a high contender when the new update comes out or so, which is, I guess it's just shocking that the Ballista as it stands isn't, you know, as useful, I guess, like in the current build that I played. So I mean, all this could probably change. The Silverhand could be nerfed, or so its slots could be reduced, or so. But as it stands right now, the Silverhand it's really good. I see it possibly even replacing light tanks. So I did a test with the Silverhand against a battle tank, and I think it did quite well. I think it got the battle tank down to like almost 50% health before it went down, which is not entirely bad, because that means that with some support you might be able to take on a battle tank or so if you can definitely get the odds in your favor and get some really good penetrations head on or so. So it does seem to be quite... I think it's currently considered a medium tank, and I do see that. It is a good middle ground between the light tank or so and the battle tank. So I kind of want the Colonials to get like their own equivalent of that. Maybe something that is more akin to like a Panzer IV, where instead of having 2 cannons or so, it has basically the same durability of the medium tank, but it only has like a 75mm cannon, the same that you would find on like a battle tank or something. So it's instead of having 2 kind of good guns, so it has like 1 really good gun. So I think that would be something I would like to see in like a further patch. So maybe for like the fall update or so, if they have a giant patch come in there, because I think the Colonials definitely going to need some form of medium tank or so, because it doesn't seem fair, I guess. So, but I guess it's balanced up by the next vehicle I'm going to go into, which is the tank get that the Colonials get, the T-12 Acheon. I probably butchered that up. It's interesting because of the fact that it is as it stands right now, because it's considered to be like the Colonials like specialized version of the armored car. It is actually much more powerful than the armored car, essentially. So because of 2 simple facts. One, it has a 50 caliber machine gun, meaning that it does way more damage, has a larger magazine, and it can do just much more damage per second than any armored car can. And the second thing is that it actually has a reasonable amount of armor. I think I did a test where I shot it with a 68mm cannon, and there's actually a chance of ricochet on the tankette, which is just crazy to think about. Which means that even 40mm shells have a potential of bouncing off the tankette entirely. So, and I think it could take like maybe, I think it could take like probably 2 68mm shells before it could get disabled or so, possibly more, which is crazy to think about. So you have a really, I think the only downside about it is that it only can fire completely forward, so it's completely dependent on the driver managing that. The same goes for the Silverhand as well, with the forward-mounted cannon that's in the hull, vice the turret as well. So that's like going to be the only downside to it. But it can take on armored cars head-on without any problems, and it can take quite a bit of damage, as well as the fact that it does have the ability to ricochet shells, so it could possibly ricochet off some RPGs, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, so that's what I was able to conclude with the testing that I did as of this moment. So I think one other thing I wanted to brush off of tightly or so is the idea of RNG in terms of penetration. I did some more testing on that grounds, and I found that it is dependent on where you're shooting the tank. Like, I found that shooting directly where the gun barrel comes out of the turret is a weak spot in most tanks, as well as certain features on the front hull as well. So it's not going to be complete RNG, because it seems that some surfaces, sometimes they bounce, sometimes they don't, but they're all some guaranteed penetration marks on the fronts and sides of enemy tanks, depending on where you're shooting it from. So it will definitely be a skill-based thing. So the person who has the better tank, the better skills, but also has the most skill, does have the potential to actually win a engagement over someone who doesn't possess all those things or so. So it's gonna be kind of interesting to see how that works. So as always, all this is like in this is all in development, and things are subject to change or so. But from what I can kind of tell, so I don't think RNG is gonna be too much of a problem, as I do feel like there's a good amount of skill you can apply to these situations in order to get some more consistent results, which I think that will add a lot of dynamic to the game. So instead of just trying to get shots on targets, so instead it's not a matter of shooting your target, but it's also a matter of where you shoot it as well. And it also opens up the door to having more skilled tankers may have the opportunity to kill multiple tanks of the same class and the same standard ammunition or so, if they possess a higher level of skill and knowledge on where to actually attack other targets. So I think no, it's actually very interesting. So I'm actually looking forward to see what other updates they might have to the Ballista. So maybe they might add a buff to it. So I still want to go ahead and I didn't have a chance to test out the tank against half tracks. I doubt it's gonna hold up, but would have to go ahead and see it. So I'll have to get back to you guys on that. So if I ever get time to go ahead and get back on the server and test out some of the new features. But I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of informative video. So I'm hoping that the audio quality is a little bit better now. I think I'm still trying to tweak that a little bit. But as always, take care, and I will see you guys out there.